Good afternoon, everyone. Minister has a statement, and then we'll be happy to take questions afterwards.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In a few hours, I'll table this government's 2017-18 fiscal and economic plan. Budget 2017 is about making the lives of Albertans better. In this budget, we're making practical changes that make life more affordable for families. It's a plan to keep creating jobs and building a diversified economy. It's a promise to protect and improve the services and supports that make a difference in the lives of Albertans. It is our pledge that we are laying the foundation for a return to economic growth. I want to thank Albertans for their input in this budget. I traveled from one end of this province to the other, listening to their thoughts on this budget. So did my colleagues. Here's what we heard. Families want us to help create and protect jobs. Families want our government to keep investing in long overdue repairs and modernizations of our schools and hospitals, and they want us to keep improving our roads and highways. They want us to make things more affordable and bring the deficit down thoughtfully and prudently. Budget 2017 is aimed squarely at addressing those priorities. We're coming off a couple tough years in this province, marked by low oil prices and extraordinary circumstances like the Wood Buffalo wildfires. But now, we're seeing green shoots in our economy. Promising signs 2017 will be the year Alberta's economy turns around. Alberta's economy is stabilizing and jobs are returning. We expect our economy to grow by 2.6% this year, the highest economic growth rate in Canada. Are we out of the woods? As I've said before, no. Now is not the time to let our steady hand waver. As our economy recovers, we will continue to bring the deficit down to balance, thoughtfully and prudently. And we'll do so without sacrificing the supports and services families need. Budget 2017 will continue government's commitment to build and improve our aging infrastructure, putting Albertans to work building our province for the future. The $29.5 billion budget 2017 capital plan invests an additional $1.4 billion over last year. This will build healthcare facilities, schools, and other public institutions where Albertans can access the services they need. Keeping our interchanges, bridges, and highways in good working order will ensure families and goods can get around safely and efficiently. We're also bolstering our economy with tax credits to attract and keep investment dollars here in Alberta. Our government is into its second year of our $250 million package to support job creators and encourage business capital investment. As part of our plan, we're driving innovation and encouraging investment in our province. This includes building green infrastructure as outlined in our climate leadership plan. Over the next 3 years, $5.4 billion will be fully reinvested to diversify the economy and help households, businesses, and communities save energy and money. Budget 2017 makes practical changes that will make life more affordable for Albertans. Every Albertan deserves a great education in a modern school. This year, that education is going to cost parents less. The first legislative action we took this session was to reduce school fees for kindergarten to grade 12 students by 25%. Bill 1, an act to reduce school fees, will give families real relief from the cost of long bus rides, instructional supplies, and materials. For Albertans carrying on to post-secondary, this will be the third year in a row we have frozen tuition. This is helping Albertans get the education, training, and skills they need to get a great job. To help families, we are capping electricity prices to ensure stable and affordable power over the next 4 years. This will protect families from the volatile price swings they saw under the former government, providing them with more certainty as they plan their household budgets. In short, these measures will make life better for Albertans. Our budget also includes measures to help Albertans reduce their energy costs. Energy Efficiency Alberta will deliver a variety of programs and services for energy efficiency and small-scale renewables. These are just a few of the ways Budget 2017 helps make life more affordable for families. This budget also contains an important promise to protect and improve services Albertans rely on. Of course, the global economy remains volatile. Energy prices have stayed lower for longer. At the same time, our population continues to grow. These factors have combined to put additional pressures on our social services. Budget 2017 reflects that reality. Our commitment to have the backs of Albertans through these tough times remains unwavering. Budget 2017 delivers on that promise by providing stable funding for health care, education, and social supports. While we continue to care for our province's most vulnerable population, we'll also commit to find savings in our budget. We have a plan to reduce the deficit year over year and return to balance. This will be achieved by keeping spending below population plus inflation. We'll also find $200 million in savings this year. That's on top of up to $500 million in savings we realized over 2 years from the physicians' compensation agreement we signed last year. We are putting in place an executive compensation framework for 23 public agencies that is expected to save nearly $16 million a year once fully implemented. We'll continue to freeze salaries for political staff and managers in government departments and public agencies. These measures, along with the others outlined in the fiscal plan, will help us along our path to balance. In closing, this is a budget that helps Albertans, all Albertans. That's not always the way budgets in Alberta have been written. Here's an example. At the same time, the former government told families they couldn't reduce school fees. They thought it was just fine to hand out taxpayer-funded golf club memberships to their friends. We canceled those country club perks and are reducing school fees for families by 25%. We're here to help make life better for all Albertans, not to help politicians and their friends work on their backswings. I want to end my remarks by thanking the Treasury Board and finance officials who have worked so hard to build this budget. I, along with my government colleagues, look forward to implementing Budget 2017 and making life better for all Albertans. Thank you, and now I'll take questions. Do you have some water?
So, before we begin with the questions, we'll do this one here is mic 1, that'll be mic 2. We'll alternate back and forth, and then we'll head down to Calgary after we go back and forth a bit. So we'll start here at mic 1.
And water?
Water.
Hi.
So you mentioned Bill 1 in your speech there, and that was a 25% cut, not quite the 50% that was originally promised. And, you know, for example, the Edmonton Hospital, a lot of that funding was backloaded 3 years down the road. Has the revenue shortfall made many of the NDP's original promises difficult or impossible?
Oh, thank you. You know, I think, Stuart, I was up at this podium last year talking about how if we needed to, we would slow down the implementation of campaign promises. But this 25% reduction, which will cost on an annual basis of $50 million, will be a welcome relief, I'm sure, for families whose children go to elementary schools. And, you know, the previous government didn't cut those costs. They proceeded to increase them, or they were increased by school boards on a year-over-year basis. and we're taking real action to make life affordable for families at this time.
So for example, childcare, is that something, we have a pilot project right now, are things like that just going to
No, in this budget, there are a number of new childcare pilots. That work is going to be done either by Community and Social Services or by Children's Services. I think it's the former. So there's new money in this budget to expand that pilot program that started last year.
Nothing universal though?
Oh, sorry. You're asking about universal daycare?
Yeah.
No, there is not universal daycare in this budget. They're continuing to expand the pilots that we started last year.
Thanks.
Sir, you mentioned a path to balancing the
Yeah.
budget. I don't see a path in this budget. Is there a path in this budget, and when do you expect to actually start to balance it?
Yes, there is a path to balance in this budget. If you'll look, we are reducing the size of the deficit in this budget, and going forward, we'll continue to reduce deficits as the economy returns and as our capital investments and other kinds of diversification take hold, and we'll get there quicker if it picks up more quickly.
Is there a year you're looking at to balance?
Oh, yeah. That hasn't changed. That's still in the time frame of about 5-6 years down the road, 2023, 2024.
Just a follow-up. Contract talks. This year, a lot of contracts
That's
are
right.
coming up, public sector workers. I don't see anything in the budget to take into account potential
Sure.
wage increases. What happens if they get wage increases to your budget?
You know, it's standard operating procedure not to put that sort of thing in a budget, but the fiscal plan, if the fiscal plan needs to change, we will do that. But frankly, we've seen some good results as a result of the AMA coming to the table 2 years early and working with government to reduce their contracts up to $500 million over 2 years. We've frozen a number of places across government, management salaries for the second year. We're going into the second year of freezing those. We've frozen for the entire term all government salaries of MLAs, ministers, and political staff. And the 158 agencies, boards, and commissions that are out there, we've frozen their management staff salaries as well. So we've taken real action that are getting us reductions, and when we go into negotiations, we'll do those negotiations at the table, and they'll be respectful.
Minister, I actually have a similar question to Graham's. In that potential raises are not built into the budget, is the message essentially either you're not, to public sector workers, you're not getting a raise, or these numbers are going to be, these expenditure numbers are going to be higher than what's in the budget? Where are you on that?
Yeah, well, where I am, James, is not to negotiate anything with you or any person here. We're going to do that at the table in a respectful way. It's standard operating procedure not to put increases in the budget. So we are going to go to the table and work hard to come up with contracts that are in the best interests of both Albertans and workers and government.
I wanted to ask you, cast your mind down the road a bit to 2019, the out-year numbers, and here you're still only looking at relatively modest economic growth over the next couple of years. You're looking at entering 2019 with a $7 billion deficit, unemployment rate around 7%. How hard is it going to be to actually win an election if these kinds of numbers are what we should expect in 2019?
I just want to win this press conference, actually. So I'm focused on that. Alberta's economy is expected to grow by 2.6% in 2017 and then gain some strength in those out years that you were talking about. And at the same time, we're going to be bending the cost curve on government expenditures. So that's how we get back to balance, is by spending under population plus inflation, or population plus inflation, and you know, seeing some of the things in the economy which are green shoots start to take hold. So that's what I'm focused on, James, right now.
Go back to Mike 2.
Okay. In this budget, you have a WTI
sorry.
forecast, I'm short, for $55 a barrel. We're at 48 today, and ATB said yesterday they don't expect significant increases. So what if this is too optimistic?
why did ATB weigh in at all when I've got a press conference with you? No, you know, what we've done this year is the same thing we've done last year in terms of risk adjusting that part of our budget, which is the non-renewable resources. We're not even started the new fiscal year. It looks like today oil's going back up beyond 49, and you know, in the previous few months it's been around 52 or above 50 anyway. So I'm hopeful that as we go forward we'll see that solidify a little more above 50 and get to 55 as we're forecasting. We take those forecasts from private sector forecasts. They're third parties who we average, and I think you know, if we all just sort of not look at it daily like I tend to do, but maybe on a more long-term basis, we'll see the numbers get to where we want them. As you know, we identified last year a $42 a barrel at budget, and then we changed that at Q2 to 45, and what was achieved was 48. So you know, maybe there's some lessons to be learned there in terms of what we have identified maybe is not high enough, and maybe it'll go a little higher. I'm certainly hopeful.
Back to Mike 1.
Hi, Minister. Now, you're borrowing, Alberta is once again borrowing to just kind of keep the lights on for operating budget. Justify to Albertans why you've got a record capital spend here in the 2017 budget when you're borrowing such huge amounts of money.
Well, in part, there was a lapse from 2016 as a result of the conditions that construction found itself in with wet weather, with the impact of the wood buffalo wildfires. Some projects were put off. A lot of time and attention was focused on making sure the people and the communities around Wood Buffalo or Fort McMurray got got that wildfire addressed and put out. So the monies that's in the kind of $9 billion range is partly the lapsing from 2016 into 2017 and future years. So all projects are going to continue to be done. And the projects themselves, you know, they put a lot of Albertans to work. The 15% increase over the previous government's capital spending plan is responsible alone for 4,000 jobs on an annual basis. The entire capital plan is responsible, the $9 billion is responsible for about 10,000 jobs a year. Those are necessary and needed by Albertans and companies at this time, and that's our commitment, to have the backs of Albertans to make life better and to make it more affordable.
And the debt to GDP ratio now is going to go up to, well, it's going to double since 2015. And by 2019, we're going to be up around 19%, which puts us above BC and Saskatchewan as well. Explain how that's actually going to make Albertans feel, do you think? Because a big part of your selling point for this government is we're committed to keeping it super duper low, and you're not.
Yeah. Well, debt to GDP, you know, we maintain an excellent fiscal fundamentals in this province, including our debt to GDP. When compared to other provinces, our debt to GDP remains incredibly low. So in terms of how Albertans are going to feel, I think they're going to feel some gratitude around the fact that the important programs and services they require, whether it's a recession or not, are continuing to stay whole and strong. They'll feel like we're not using this recession like previous governments have done to severely cut back on programs and services, to make it problematic for teachers to stay employed in this province, to make it problematic for nurses to stay in this province when severe cuts like in both of those areas were attributed to downturns in the past. So, you know, we're going to maintain those things. We've still got a tax advantage over every other province of $8.7 billion, I think, in this budget this year, which is an attractor for businesses, and it's an affordability issue for Albertans. We're not going to make them bear the brunt of this downturn. We're going to do things like we're doing now that continues to say, your province believes in Alberta, believes in you, and we're going to carry this as a bit of a shock absorber until we can get to the point where the diversification starts to pay off, the economy starts to show more green shoots across our economy, and they stay working that entire time through our capital plan.
We'll head to Mike 2 and then down to Calgary after that.
I want to go to the deficit number. Auditor General made you do the $1.1 billion write-down line item for last year. Without that, you would have had a sub $10 billion deficit. So how this year with oil revenue now forecast 55, constraining spending to 2.2%, is the deficit still higher than it would have actually been this past fiscal year at 10.3?
Sure. Well, those extraordinary expenses were, they were challenging, of course. We took them on and addressed them. I don't anticipate extraordinary expenses like that again, but you can never predict where things are going to go. We used our $700 million risk adjustment, which was a terribly prudent thing to do. At the end of Q3. Now we've got a $500 million risk adjustment. If we are able to see oil get to the point of $55 a barrel, or other things improve in other commodities or other kind of income revenue sources, then we won't need that $500 million, and we can see our deficit go down to, I think it would be about $9.7 billion, which would make me feel a lot better. But we took those extraordinary hits and dealt with them. Hopefully they won't be in our future. We are going to bend the cost curve of operational expenses down to about, I think it's this year it'll be 2.2% you mentioned, and then 2.7% going forward. That will, that would be great performance, frankly. The previous governments were sometimes high as 10, 11% year on year, and when they didn't have money, they cut severely into their programs and services, making it more difficult for Albertans. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep a steady hand on the tiller going forward.
I guess my question, though, is Albertans are going to look at it and go, well, oil's $55 in the budget, not 42 like last year. How are we still in the same ballpark as far as the deficit number?
Well, the deficit number won't be in the same ballpark if we're able to take all the risk adjustment out at Q1 or Q2 or Q3. It'll be below $10 billion, and that's going in the right direction. In the following year, I think we forecast about $7.2 billion, and with a risk adjustment of about $1 billion. So if we're able to meet the revenue targets and in all areas, we'll drive this deficit down in a slow and steady way to get to balance by 2023.
We'll take some questions from Calgary now. Can we have the first question?
Hi there, Minister. It's Robson Fletcher from CBC. I just wanted to clarify what you had said about wages and public sector contracts coming up. So in the section of the budget on page 22 where it identifies public sector compensation, the next 3 years for Alberta Health Services look about average 1% increases. Are you saying that those 1% increases are assuming no change in the current pay scale?
We've frozen for Alberta Health Services and for every other area of government management staff and out-of-scope staff or non-bargain staff, I guess. We've frozen all of their salaries starting back in March of 2016, and that'll continue on until March of 2018 and possibly beyond that. So there are no changes in those salaries. I don't know the particular reference, but I'll need to follow up with the health minister in that specifically. What we've built, there are no increases in collective agreements identified in any of the budget. We'll do that negotiating at the table and in a respectful fashion, because that's what, frankly, nurses expect from us. That's what teachers expect from us, that we'll have our negotiators and their negotiators deal with contracts in that forum.
How much room does that leave to negotiate, though, if you're identifying, that spending is going to need to be kept below inflation and population growth, and you're basically just at that threshold without any potential increases? I mean, how much room does that leave for negotiation if you're going to maintain that commitment to?
Sorry, I'm not able to answer that because it really is not part of my thinking. That'll be dealt with we have room to deal with that in the fiscal plan if we need to, but it's got to take place at the table and not here at this podium.
But to be clear, the budget numbers don't include any anticipated changes.
They do not. No, there are no anticipated changes. That gets dealt with in the fiscal plan, and my understanding is standard operating procedure not to put those in budgets. We'll do that at the negotiating table, not here.
Thanks.
We have the next question from Calgary, please.
Ethan Liu from Reuters. The budget deficit for the upcoming fiscal year of 10.3 is slightly higher than the 10.1 that was previously forecast. So why is it that way, given that it can be easily avoided if you just spend slightly less?
Yeah, Budget 2016 identified a different deficit number. Budget 2017, we've reset to a more realistic basis what the year-over-year growth of operations is. If you look at Budget 2016, I think it set it somewhere around 1.7%. That's not realistic with regard to what we know now. So we reset that number, and I'm going to be sticking by it. And if we're not dealing with any extraordinarily difficult year in terms of disasters and other things, we'll be able to achieve a better than 10.3 with the removal of the $500 million risk adjustment. But we'll figure that out as we go through the year.
And oil and gas revenue will more than double in the upcoming fiscal years. So you should rightfully have more money. So what is eating into that extra money?
So I said that what we identified in Budget 2016, in particular around our operations, was not, once we got through the year, we found it was not realistic. So we reset that number percentage increase to, I think, 2.2 as opposed to 1.7%. So that would be the difference in terms of operational needs, so that, life is not difficult. I mean, there's choices we made. And the choices we've made as a government is to continue to support Albertans with the necessary programs and services they require. I can appreciate that other parties may feel differently about that, but that would make life more difficult and leave Albertans on their own to figure these things out. So we've taken the choice to correctly reset our operational spending to 2.2%, which is still below 1 full percentage point population growth plus inflation, and will help us get back to balance in the midterm if we continue, and we will continue to do that.
We'll do two more from Calgary, and then we'll come back to the room. Next question from Calgary.
Rick Bell, Calgary Sun. Good afternoon, Minister. How are you going to sell this budget when some of the numbers are very, very large, much larger than Albertans are used to? For instance, $71 billion debt, for example. And somebody just mentioned they want you to say green shoots one more time. $71 billion in debt. How do you sell this when you've still got very high deficits, very high and growing debt? How do you plan to actually, there might be a few Albertans that are still worried about that kind of mathematics.
Sure. Well, first of all, our path to reduce the deficit prudently over time is something I've explained here a few times. We're going to work to control spending to below population plus inflation and gradually reduce the deficit. And we're not going to make drastic cuts to the things that would only hurt Albertans to get to balance more quickly. So we're all about assisting to make the lives of Albertans better. The opposition would make it worse by cutting services Albertans need and rely on. That's the path that previous governments have taken. We're not going to repeat those same mistakes that many are still paying for today. So we are going to address this by that kind of action. We believe that the government Albertans need is a government that makes their lives better. We're going to address the deficit first, and then we will work on, once we're to surplus, we'll start working on the debt. We can address the debt servicing. We're in relatively good shape there compared to other provinces. So we'll continue to service the debt while we make cuts to things like operational spending. We're bending the cost curve that way, and we'll continue to do that work.
Question from Calgary?
Yeah, Amanda Stevenson, Post Media. I just have a question about the craft distillers program that you say is going to be modeled on the craft brewers program. That brewers program was met with a number of court challenges that have still to be resolved. So I'm just wondering if this distillers program is going to be structured the same way, and if so, wouldn't it also be at risk of legal challenges from out of province?
Yeah, you're asking about the distillers, small distillers grant program that hasn't rolled out yet. But you know, the small brewers grant program has been incredibly successful. In my community of Inglewood, there are now 2 craft brewers, which just opened up within the last 2 months. And in the province, I think we're upwards of 70 or so, where when we started this, there was 14 back in 2015. So this has been an incredible industry, or cottage industry, not cottage, craft brewers industry, that is hiring people, purchasing capital and equipment, and starting to make a name for itself across our province. So the distillers program will be modeled on the successes of the small brewers craft brewery program. We'll have more details, of course, to release in a little while, but I'm terribly excited about another potential tour this summer to distillers.
But are you confident you can avoid some of the legal challenges that you've run into with the brewers program?
You were saying, okay, yeah, we're pretty confident. Of course, that's something that is being handled by justice and people in those areas. So I'm very confident that we are trade compliant, that we are, you know, we have the most open liquor marketing system in the entire country. There are over 700, I think if I've got it right, 745 different beer labels in this province. I don't think you can find that many anywhere else in the country. And over 20,000 liquor products available in this province. So it's the most open system of liquor marketing anywhere, and it's successful. And the Small Brewers Grant Program is part of that success, and we're going to keep being successful now with the Distillers Program.
We'll head back to the room here in Edmonton at mic 1.
So you're talking about sort of a long game approach to, you know, balancing the budget, but you answered a question over there saying if oil recovers quicker than we're thinking, then that happens quicker. Do you have a magic number in your head? I mean, like next year, let's say, if oil reaches $100 a barrel, do you balance a budget? Like what is that number? Because budgets have been balanced in the past when oil was high. What is the magic number?
I don't have a magic number. What I have is an incredibly great belief in the dedicated people, both in government and in the Crown corporations and the related agencies to government, to deliver quality services for Albertans. We're going to continue to do that, and that will help us get back to balance as we bend the cost curve on operations.
Sorry, you said in the past 2023 or 2024. Just now you said 2023. Are you talking about the 23-24 fiscal year? Is
yes.
that,
yes.
That's when we'll see a balanced budget?
Yeah, that's, you know, it's a plan to bend the cost curve in a prudent and thoughtful fashion. You can get there more quickly, and we've seen that happen in this province before. You leave infrastructure deficits, you see people leave the province to go to other places for work. We're not doing that. We're not going to make a bad situation worse with throwing Albertans out of work when there's work to be done. There's work that's needed to be done. We're a growing province. We're going to be above the national average in growth of population next year. So, you know, and we're going to lead the nation in GDP growth. Those things require government to provide services and programs for its populace. That's our focus, that's our commitment, that's our promise, and we will get to balance. Once we get to balance and run surpluses, we will pay down the debt. And once we pay down the debt, you know, happy days will be here again.
Head over to Mike 2.
Thank you. Minister, within the budget, so much of this depends on bitumen prices going up to, you know, fill holes in the budget. And within that, a lot of that depends on Trans Mountain being built and Line 3. So those have been approved, obviously not built. Pipelines just are not built on time. How do you justify building a budget around a pipeline timeline?
Well, thank you for reminding me about the pipelines. I think it's the first time it's been said all press conference, and I should have been saying it often. And it will help our GDP going forward. When there is pipeline access, we will see more bitumen, more oil get to the coast, and more world prices for our really important commodity that drives Alberta. But we're not focused entirely on pipelines and bitumen. We're focused on diversification of the economy. There's been great things happen across our economy of late. You know, they're not built yet, but the petrochemical diversification project is going to attract money to this province, investment to this province that will mean real investment, real jobs, both permanent, long-term, and construction jobs. We are, you know, I'm not building a budget on pipelines. I'm building a budget on expected returns from non-renewable resource revenues, from corporate, personal, other services. Those are the revenue lines I'm building this budget on, and it will work. We will get to the 2.2% operational spending we see. We'll get to be able to address our deficit and move that down as we go forward.
Can you give a little bit of concrete examples of when you say you're not building this just on pipelines? The difference in the revenue number between what will be the end of this fiscal year and next year is like $2 billion, and half of that is bitumen. So can you give us some concrete examples of this diversification?
Well, yeah, the well, bitumen will, you know, we're seeing those projects finish off, so they'll be producing more. That's one thing, and that grows as in the out years. There'll be more bitumen production take place. The real concrete examples of diversification include, you know, the $250 million package that we made available to venture capitalists so that people could spend more money on their businesses. We'll see exports increase, not only in the non-renewable side, but across our economy. They're starting to do that now. So those are some concrete examples of where there'll be increases to our economy as a result of things other than oil and gas.
Back over to Mike 1.
Minister, you mentioned the year 23-24 is when you expect to return to balanced budgets, but this budget doesn't look that far ahead. There's just a 3-year look ahead, not a 5-year fiscal plan. So given that, how concerned are you that this could affect people's confidence in Alberta's financial situation?
You know, investor confidence is really important, and we're doing things like we've got the lowest tax jurisdiction in the entire country as a result of our actions here. $8.7 billion less than BC with this budget. That attracts investment. We are continuing to support the population of Alberta with the necessary things they need. So that's, you know, builds confidence when they don't see their government rug pulled out from under them. We're not going to do that. The path to balance is thoughtful and prudent. It's not going to throw people, you know, it's not going to say, we don't have your back any longer, you're on your own. People expect government to be there for the necessary things that they can't provide on their own, which are healthcare, education, social services, and transportation generally. So we're going to continue to do those things because that's what our promise to Albertans is.
But after the budget last year, Alberta saw its credit rating downgraded.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there, looking forward, I mean, do you see Alberta coming back from that, or what's the, do you see any impact of this budget on that rating?
The things I'm focused on are making life better and more affordable for Alberta families. As I said, I'm not going to turn my back on them. I'm going to, by implementing massive cuts across government services to balance the books. That would be the wrong thing to do. We have the strongest balance sheet of any province in this country. And we're going to remain below other provinces in terms of debt to GDP, or around the bottom of all of that, other provinces. So we're focused on doing the things Albertans require. We're cutting back on management salaries and other kinds of things to make life more affordable. So I'm going to take care of those things, and that's what Albertans, I think, have elected me to do.
Back over to Mike 2.
Yeah, Mr. Ceci.
Yep.
Most economists, and I think your Mr. Dodge included, say that it's not a good idea to raise corporate taxes when you're going into a recession. Yet you raised them by 20%, and we notice in the current figures that the revenue from corporate taxes went down 25% over the budget predictions of last year. Is this not evidence that the economists are right and your taxes to corporations aren't working?
Well, first off, on where we went with corporate taxes, they were 10%. They're now 12%, or 2 percentage points higher. And do I think it's right for wealthy corporations to pay a little bit more of taxes to keep this great province functioning? Yes, I do. The 12% that corporate taxes now are now is in the average or on the low side of corporate taxes in this country. So we haven't gone anywhere that, frankly, other provinces haven't gone. Do I think that that was a direct contributor? We've been in the most severe recession in a generation. That's what I think has affected our corporate tax returns or revenue lines from corporate taxes, not the 2%.
Things were worse a year ago when you made your 2016 budget predictions, and you were predicting for 25% higher in revenue from corporate taxes. Mm-hmm. Revenues have gone up in every other area except corporate taxes. Doesn't this suggest that maybe you should rethink this?
No. It means that the effects of the recession have been hard on corporations or companies across this province. I mean, you don't have to look very far to see the effects of layoffs and reductions in capital expenditures. So I don't think, I know I'm not going anywhere else other than keeping taxes the same. There are no new taxes in this budget. This budget is the budget that Albertans can look at and say, there's no tax increase here. We're keeping things exactly the same going forward to make life more affordable, and we're going to continue to have the backs of Albertans. The opposition may cut taxes. They would probably reduce taxes on their corporate friends, but we're not going to do that. We're going to keep things the same. There's no new taxes, and we still have Albertans back with programs and services staying strong, and we're still working to diversify the economy so that we can see a more regular stream of income from a variety of tax sources.
Back to Mike 1, and then we'll head to Calgary for a couple more.
Hi, Minister. I just wanted to follow up on Breyer's question about the credit rating agencies. Alberta's credit rating was downgraded after last year's budget, mostly because they were concerned about spiraling spending and borrowing and a seeming lack of new revenues and taxes. It seems that we're seeing this again this year, and also lack of a specific plan to pay the debt back. Do you think that your plan to pay back, to get back to balance, is specific enough for those credit rating agencies?
Well, I'm telling you what the plan is. The plan is to maintain a lower operational cost curve than previous governments, to have fiscal discipline with regard to where that's going. You know, in the past, I think it was fiscal malpractice to increase your operational spending 10% one year and then to slash it the next year and then to increase it 10% again the next year. We're coming up with a path back to balance by bending the curve on expenses. And in all of that, my overarching concern is Albertans. For them to know that we are doing what's necessary so that they aren't left without as we come out of this recession.
Well, that's fair, Minister, but you know, we're going to be paying more to service our debt if our credit rating gets downgraded again. And I'm not sure how would that help Albertans if there's not more money aside to pay for those services you want to pay for. So, I mean, do you think your plan is specific enough? It doesn't seem to be a very specific plan laid out word for word in the budget.
I think it is in the budget, and I think I talked about it here as well. I think thoughtfully and prudently we're going to bring down the deficit, and when we bring down the deficit to balance and we start to run surpluses, we will attack the debt in this province.
Are you planning on selling your budget to the credit rating agencies like you did last year?
You know, that still hasn't been finalized. I'll get back to you.
We'll head to Calgary for a couple more questions there. Can we have the next question?
Hi, it's Deborah Yedlin from the Calgary Herald. Just a couple of questions. One is about the funding for innovation and technology. You say that the budget provides $1 billion for other CLP initiatives. What does that mean for emissions reduction Alberta in terms of the dollars it can see to really support on innovation?
Well, I can tell you, Deborah, that the Minister of Economic Development Trade has been working very diligently and closely with Alberta Innovates and others to make sure that our package of supports for innovation, both in the clean tech area and other areas, meets the needs of the stakeholders in Alberta. But you really probably need to go to him to ask more specifics about that part of the budget.
You can't tell me what dollars you're actually committing to this.
I really can't hear you, Deborah. The dollars we're committing to what?
Well, to emissions reduction Alberta and what for their innovation undertakings.
No, I'll need to go to Minister Billis and ask.
So my next question is really about the diversification. I'm not satisfied with your concrete examples that you gave earlier. So I'm just wondering about, you talked about the petrochemical diversification. You're saying $6 billion in investment attraction. Where's the evidence of that? What kind of discussions are you having with respect to that? What other initiatives is the government looking at? And why is the government not looking for offering tax incentives to bring new businesses to the province, like cities in the U.S. are doing, to bring economic activity to their regions?
Again, Minister Billis is reaching out to companies. He's been on a couple trips to Asia, and he has additional plans to go to China. The whole purpose of those trade missions is, and the largest one happened of any government in this province happened recently when he took 83 companies to China to look at sealing deals for trade. He also has a package where he is endeavoring to attract head offices to Alberta, our cities in Alberta. And the $6 billion, those numbers, I've seen them before in terms of what the PDP program will attract in terms of the plants that need to get built as a result of the $500 million in credits that we've made available. In addition to other diversification, you know, we're seeing the supports, we're seeing areas like agribusiness definitely improve. Cavendish Farms, I think, is one we are pleased to land in the Lethbridge area that will be the largest potato manufacturing plant in Canada. That occurred during our watch and as a result of our involvement with Lethbridge to make that happen. There are probably other examples that I don't have on the top of my head.
Thanks very much.
Okay. We've got 2 more questions in Calgary, so we'll take those both and then come back to the room.
Hi, it's Annalise Klingbeil from Post Media. I'm just wondering, the mayor said he was hopeful that there would be some sort of commitment to the Green Line project in the budget. I don't see any mention of that. I guess what's your message for Calgary and the mayor, who are still holding out hope of support for the Green Line?
You know, my message, and I'm a Calgarian, we've been in close contact with Mayor Nenshi on this. We've been in close contact with Mayor Nenshi on this project, and just in December, early December of last year, I was down to hand over a $150 million check for critical work on Calgary's Green Line corridor. Calgary City Council is still looking at their options with regard to the siting of that Green Line, and they've not landed on a specific proposal or an estimated cost. We remain, of course, at government open for discussions around our provincial role in funding all of that, and we'll continue to follow the proceedings with Calgary City Council as it works out the details for the proposed project. So that would be my feeling.
So are you waiting for a specific cost and nailing down the project before you make a commitment?
Yeah, specific siting, route, cost, all those things need to be nailed down from Calgary City Council's end before there can be, you know, an agreement to fund whatever. I mean, let's get all that sorted out first.
Thank you.
Okay.
And the final question from Calgary.
Hi, this is Kelly Kreiderman from the Globe and Mail. You talk about Kinder Morgan's Trans Mountain expansion being completed by 2021. The company talks about it being completed by 2020. Which do you think is more likely, and do you think that the pipeline expansion will be even completed in that time frame? How confident are you?
You know, I'm not the expert in all of those areas, but I do hear from the Energy Ministry, and they talk about shovels being in the ground on Trans Mountain this year.
Okay, we'll come back to the room here for Mike 2.
Minister, I'd like to ask you, municipalities have been pushing for longer-term forecasts for their budgeting purposes. You give them 4-year outlooks, but the feds have moved to 8 years. Why not do what the feds are doing and giving longer-term forecasts in terms of funding?
That's the 4-year capital plan. You know, we're in the 2nd year of our 5-year capital plan, and we think that gives a lot of certainty, actually, with regard to municipalities. Previously, 3-year capital plans were the norm, so we've improved on that. So we're you know, and they know as we go forward, as soon as we know, we'll make our numbers known to them and through discussions. But I just want to remind you and everyone that this province contributes to municipalities in this province the highest amount of monies on a per capita basis than any other province. I mean, so while we may not have every year laid out beyond the 5th year right now, we're solid in terms of our work with those partners.
But when the feds are doing it, wouldn't it make sense to sync up with them?
You know, it's something to consider for sure. Thanks.
Over to Mike 1.
Hi, Minister. I'm just wondering what happened to the hiring freeze.
Still on.
Still on? Then why are there, I think, about 2,000 new FTEs in the budget?
Yeah, the hiring restraint is still on. We're going into the 3rd year, I think, of that. So any hires have to come as a result of going to deputy minister's level. If they're in the Alberta Public Service, if they're from outside public service, they have to go to the deputy minister of public services. So in specific answer to your question, though, we are addressing critical frontline needs, and those primarily are in the area of justice and solicitor general. Needs like prosecutors and court service workers and corrections staff. That's the lion's share of hiring. We're still a growing province, as I said, and we still need to address the needs of new schools with teachers and new hospitals with nurses.
And I just want to be clear, how concerned are you, or maybe you're not, about Alberta's credit rating being downgraded again?
You know, it's certainly something that I think about, but I think more about the important delivery of in a cost-effective manner, of the services Albertans rely on. If we can do that, if we can keep to our targets, which we've had a lot of success in being able to achieve in specific areas, then we will continue to work at reducing our deficit. If we can show that our plan is working, then I think credit rating agencies and others will be satisfied that even in spite of the significant recession we're in, we're turning the corner. And once we turn the corner to a greener shoots in terms of our economy, then we're going to see greater revenues, and we're going to see greater stability in the economy.
Looks like we have one more question on mic 2, and that will do it.
Thanks. I just want to clarify one thing. Do you believe Trans Mountain and Line 3 will be built on time?
When I listen to those companies and their views about their plans, I, like every Albertan, want to see those pipelines built so that we can get our important commodity to Tidewater. And once we get it to Tidewater, then we'll get greater prices, and we'll have a greater stability for the revenues. So I, like every Albertan, want to see those achieved in a timely fashion, and so yes.
Right. That's what you would want. Do you believe that that will happen?
Aren't they the same thing?
No.
All right. I'm kind of going to treat them as the same thing.
So if I write, you believe they will be completed on time, no one's going to be mad at me.
You'll have to. So I believe they will be completed on time. How about that?
Thank you.
Thanks.